Hello, I'm Rob, and this is another results tutorial. Little lords and ladies, welcome back. Pour yourself a pint of something strong and join me for Gandalf the Grey from Games Workshop's Lord of the Rings. This should be a pretty quick tutorial, as there's not a lot of colors we're using here, just some grays, a couple browns, and a touch of white. So to start off, as usual, you're going to want to base your mini in your favorite color. I've chosen to do mine in gray with some zenithal white highlights from above. After that, I'm grabbing me some medium sea gray, and for this I'm going to color his robe and his hat. Now for the staff, for this I wanted to do something a little bit different than, just your normal, wood color, brown color, and this and that. So I've chosen to give it a coat of khaki. I think a lot of times people rely on darker colors a little bit too much to represent wood, and I wanted to try something a little bit different and a little bit lighter. And in the spirit of doing something a little bit different, we're going to take that same khaki and we're going to add in a bit of white gray to lighten it up some. And we're going to use that and we're going to color Gandalf's beard and hair with this. This might seem like a really odd choice, and I agree. But I think after we do the shading and the highlighting, the khaki background will turn into a nice, darker brown color. And speaking of browns, for the belt and the straps, I've chosen to use some Beasty Brown. This will give it a nice light leather look, instead of something darker or more aged. Really, depending on what you're trying to go for, it would depend on the brown you would want to use. If you wanted something a little darker or more aged or whatever, you could try starting off with some a flat brown and then highlighting with a leather or a Beasty Brown. And for the skin, the face, hands areas, I'm using some Vallejo Monocolor Beige Red. You could choose to use your favorite skin tone here, which is perfectly fine. Just remember that Gandalf is probably more of a medium to light tone. Being a wizard, he probably tends to spend a little more time indoors, reading, and when he is outside, he wears a wide-brimmed hat to keep the sun out of his eyes. For the sword, you want to use your favorite metallic color. Here, I've chosen to use scale color heavy metal. Normally, you would also want to base any areas that are going to be in metallic in black first. I just forgot to do it. And after I started applying the heavy metal, I was like, forget it. I don't feel like painting it black. We'll just go with it. After that, we're going to be taking some Army Painter Strong Tone and give him a good washing over. When I do washes, I normally, for every drop of wash I put in there, I'll also add in a drop of thinner medium. And then after all that, I will add in a single drop of Flow Improver. The Flow Improver helps the wash flow into the recesses and not really pull up in the raised areas, which is what we really don't want. So remember, don't let this pull up too much in any one area. And give the good, you might want to give the recesses another touch over or two if you felt like it after you're done, if it's not dark enough for you. So after that's dry, we're going to get some white gray, and we're going to do a little bit of dry brushing on his beard and hair. You might want to use, one of your crappier brushes, one of your older pointed brushes here. Try and stay away from the larger flat brushes. And you want to do this kind of lightly, because we don't want to be making a mess all over his robe or his face too much. And you'll also notice that, as we put on this white gray, that it gives his beard a nice brown undertone, which really isn't too dark. So we're going to start picking up his robe and his cloak area, and we're going to be using the original medium sea gray for that. And we want to, pick out all the outer areas or the upraised areas, and we also want to do our best to leave the deepest recesses or deepest areas in shadow alone. While we give those grays a moment to dry out, we're going to touch up his skin with a little bit of beige red. We're going to be picking out his fingers, his knuckles, his nose, and his cheekbone areas. So we're going to be adding in some basic skin tone and push those highlights just a little bit further up. I've chosen not to go any higher than this because I didn't want him to be too pasty or too white. Back to the robe. This time we're going to be adding in some light gray to the medium sea gray. Now with this, you're going to want to cover 25 to 50% of the area that you just covered in the previous step on his robe. Again, remember, leave the shadows and the recess areas alone. And like I said, about 25 to 50%, you want to leave some of the previous color showing. Now for some Beasty Brown, we're going to be cleaning up the belts and the straps on his belly area. Try to stay either, along the centers, the centers of the straps or along the edges, depending on the look that you're trying to achieve here. And you can also add in, a little bit of the white gray that we've been using to lighten up this Beasty Brown just a little bit and do some scratch highlighting along his belt to make it look a little bit more worn in. A little bit more work on the robe, this time with straight light gray. For this, we're going to be doing a little bit of edge highlighting along the folds of the robe and the cloak. Also, along the bottom of his robe. So I really enjoy painting in grays, especially when doing gradients, because they tend to blend really well with each other. You know, where like reds and blues tend to create these really harsh blends if you're not careful, but the grays really don't have that problem too much. So, you know, on camera it might look a little bit hard to see the color differences, but in person it looks really great. And after giving our mini base some texture, paint, grass, and a flower, we're going to spray it with a little bit of matte varnish, and we're all done. Gandalf the Grey from Games Workshop's Lord of the Rings miniature game. This mini was pretty simple and quick. Remember just to blend as you transition colors, and it'll make it really that much quicker and easier to do. Only one more video for the Fellowship of the Rings expansion, and we're all done. I already have those painted and done. It's just a matter of cutting the video and doing the voiceover and putting it up online. So remember to like, subscribe, and share, to help my channel grow. Below you will find links for the paints that I used in this video. This is a easy, quick way to help support my channel or my content, without costing you any extra. Also, you'll find a link for my PayPal tip jar and patreon.com, where you can help decide on what I paint or even win free stuff. Thanks, and I'll see you guys next week.